back to the Colorblind Architect Podcast. I'm your host, David. And if you're watching the video, you might notice I've got a little bit of a halo right now. Because, I'm just awesome. No, actually, actually it's the east sun, it's the morning, and I'm driving west. So, Anyways, I want to keep this video a little bit short. Because I did a long video yesterday and also a fairly long video on Monday. The thing that I wanted to talk about today was the importance of standing up for what you believe in and the importance of standing up for liberty. We're not yet to the point where we need to truly consider whether or not this is a liberty or death moment. I think there is a lot of really horrible things happening. To be quite honest, there is definitely a lot of authoritarian type stuff going on in every government across the planet. It boggles my mind that all these so-called freedom-loving democracies just all fell in line with this authoritarian order at the beginning of the pandemic. And now they're all falling in line with this Great Reset concept. And we are rapidly descending into a dystopian nightmare. We're not yet there. And so for a lot of people, they're going to be thinking, oh, no, everything's still normal. Yeah, that might be true. And I might be just crazy off my rocker. I might not have any justifiable reason to believe the things that I believe. But I believe that we are in a path towards darkness right now as a globe. And there are going to be hundreds of millions of people dead because of these authoritarian governments if things don't change soon for the better. We need freedom. Freedom and liberty is what brought about the greatest global prosperity of all time. The last 20 years, in fact, the last 30 years has been an amazing 30 years of global growth and prosperity. Throughout the world, people have improved in their economic condition. And then all of a sudden in 2020, for a respiratory virus that's no worse than the flu, and don't give me this crap that it is worse than the flu, it's no worse than the flu. Hundreds of millions of people throughout the course of the past 100 years have died from the flu. And we're complaining about 1 million people so far having died globally from COVID-19. If we actually accurately count, I doubt it's that high. Because I bet you they're counting a lot of heart attacks and a lot of suicides and a lot of cancer victims and a lot of other diseases in the name of pumping up these numbers for COVID-19. Yes, COVID-19. Yes, it is a real disease. I get it. I understand that. And you know what? That doesn't change the fact that it's being used. It's being used as a tool to take over in an authoritarian one world government. Now that I got my tinfoil hat off, let's talk serious. Just in case anybody thinks I'm going crazy, conspiracy theory. I'm not. I'm just saying we need to be vigilant, ever vigilant against authoritarianism. We need to be ever vigilant against the dangers of people who would destroy our liberties so that they can make more money or have more power. So, yeah, I might be a bit animated to say the least, but here's the thing. How did we get here? How did we let these bastards in through the gates? Well, for one, we stood idly by. We were all quiet. We were the so-called silent majority. Too many of us were the silent majority. And what do I mean by the silent majority? What I mean is all the good people of the earth, all the people who believe in freedom, all the people who believe in righteousness, all the people who believe in honesty and equity and virtue. You know, the people who actually believe in values that create a better world. Not these power-hungry monsters that are taking over our planet because they think, oh, well, it's our right. We're the leaders. We're the elites. Shut up. You're the same carbon-based life form that we all are. You know what? And Governor Herbert of Utah, you are a despicable trash person. Okay? Let me make this really clear. Yes, Governor Herbert, you're a piece of trash, and so is your little minion, Spencer Cox. And there's a whole lot of other of these little trash, globalist, Communist Party bootlickers, like Andrew Cuomo, like Gavin Newsom. There's a lot of these people who are just downright evil because they are so much more interested in having their own power and money that they're willing to destroy the lives of people, and they're willing to forget everything that they're supposed to believe in so that they can do the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party. And I know, again, I probably sound like a conspiracy theorist, okay? But unfortunately, I can't see not saying the truth here. And the truth as I see it is that we have a global conspiracy by the elites who have taken over this planet by dribs and drabs, and now that they have everybody in place, all the chess pieces on board, they're decapitating the United States so as to bring it down so that the one world government can come to being. And why? Because they believe that the United States is the source of evil. And they believe that it's the impediment to bringing about this global socialist paradise that they believe that they can bring about. They really I think a lot of them actually do believe that somehow they're going to be able to bring about some utopia. The problem is the utopia that they're dreaming of is based on the Chinese model, the Chinese Communist Party model, where it's state capitalism. What is state capitalism? Well, we used to call it by another term back when, the Germans tried it in the 1930s. It was called fascism. Where, you have private ownership of companies, but they're controlled by the state. And okay, so again, I might sound like a tinfoil hat guy, maybe, but again, I can't sit down, I can't shut up. The more I'm studying these things, and the more I'm seeing what's happening, the more I'm seeing the signs of the times, and the more I'm realizing, holy crap, we are in for a dark, dark period. And so what do we do about it? What do we do about it as a people? Well, we need to stop being a silent majority. I do still believe that the majority of the people on this planet are good people. I'm going to venture a guess that I believe that about 2/3 of the global population are good people. People who are honestly striving to do what's right and to treat others with goodness. I honestly believe that. And so how in the world does this minority of lizard people take over the world? And I say lizard people as a pejorative, not as a literal lizard people for anybody who thinks I'm going crazy. No, what I mean is the people who are using fear as the motivation and the driving force behind their ideology. Yeah, I that's why I call them lizard people, because they're using their lizard brain, the amygdala, the part of your brain that creates the fight or flight reaction, which is kind of it's very much fear-based, and it's a very hardwired and powerful part of the brain that can really wreak havoc if you don't learn to control it right. But it's still an important part of the brain. Anyways, back to what I'm talking about. We need to stand up for what we believe in. So, one of my ancestors is Patrick Henry Jr. Now, I say Patrick Henry Jr. because Patrick Henry Sr. was his uncle. Now, those of you familiar with American history will recognize the name Patrick Henry. After all, he was one of the greatest patriots in the American Revolution. He famously stood up in the East Church in Richmond, Virginia in 1776. And he gave a very fiery 1-minute speech that hopefully you all know, because it ends with the words, "Give me liberty or give me death." Now, I've been thinking a lot about that phrase. Give me liberty or give me death. And it's making me wonder, am I willing to die for liberty? And I'm 100% certain that I am willing to die for liberty. I will not go quietly into the dark. I will not be quiet. I will not give up on the things that I believe in. I will not give up on liberty. I will not give up on freedom. Okay? I will be William Wallace at the end of Braveheart, with my head being chopped off, still yelling freedom. Because you know what? It's something worth fighting for. It's a lot of people who have been blinded by this idea that, oh, but the thing is, you know, if we just have this, you know, if the government can just do this, it will make people more secure. And that's true. Freedom is having the security and not this freedom of, oh, shut up. You know, that's the thing. You cannot give more power to the government and not lose power as an individual. Okay? You either want freedom or you want tyranny. Okay? It's really simple. Now, you might want some kind of cross between the two. Okay, I get it. Yeah, we can't have absolute liberty, because if you have anarchy, which would essentially be what we call absolute liberty, then eventually a tyrant will rise. Hence the reason for the Constitution of the United States, you dumbheads. I mean, that's why we have this system of checks and balances. I mean, we already figured this out 250 years ago. Why are we having to relitigate what was already figured out by our ancestors, by our forebears? And yes, for me, they actually are my ancestors. Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry are cousins of mine. Okay? So, you want to talk about, something that's really deep and central to the core of my identity is this identity of being a freedom-loving American, someone who believes in the democratic Republican processes of this country. And you know what? Patrick Henry was a hero in another way. Patrick Henry was also one of the chief authors of the Anti-Federalist Papers. Now you might be thinking, what? The Anti-Federalist Papers? I've heard of the Federalist Papers. What are the Anti-Federalist Papers? Well, the Anti-Federalist Papers were the ones that were arguing the reasons why giving too much power to the federal government was a dangerous thing. And they went on to complain about the lack of a Bill of Rights. It was largely the result of the Anti-Federalist Papers that caused the compromise in the Constitutional Congress to create the Bill of Rights, which is what actually secured the adoption of the Constitution of the United States. Now, so I can tell you that is something that is a very proud thing for me to recognize in my family history, to know that I have ancestors who fought for liberty. And it wasn't just that. I also had ancestors in the South who were abolitionists in the antebellum South. Yes, that's right. Abolitionists in the so-called evil South that was full of a bunch of slave owners. Yes, there were slaveholders, but they were a minority. The majority of people in the South, the silent majority you might say, were the average everyday person who did not own slaves, but were not slaves themselves, and they were citizens, but they did not have the political power because of the money and corruption that the plantation owners were able to purchase. So yes, it was a much more complex thing, and there were abolitionists from before the Revolutionary War. The only reason why they gave in and didn't fight for the freedom of slaves before the Constitution was passed was because they realized that they weren't going to be able to get it through. And they felt that it was much more important to get the Constitution in place so that the wheels of justice would move forward, and that eventually that march of freedom would allow for the liberation of the slaves. Now, I've already gone way longer than I expected to go, but the whole point of this discussion is to say, stand up, speak out, do not be quiet, do not go quietly into that dark night. We need everybody of good conscience to stand up and speak vocally for freedom. This is a real live war we are fighting, and it is not a war being fought with bullets. It is a war being fought with ideas. And I am telling you that your immortal soul is on the line. So don't go quietly into that dark night. Stand up, fight. And if it ends that we are not victorious, if it ends that freedom is lost and darkness reigns and we lose our lives because we were the ones standing up for freedom, then good. At least then we can go to our Maker and stand before God at the eternal bar and say, I did what I could. I did what I could. And hopefully at that time, our Savior, Jesus Christ, will say to us, well done, thou good and faithful servant. on the Colorblind Architect Podcast. Thank you for listening. Peace out.